Welcome to episode 20 of Return on Wellness. I'm your virtual host, David V. Stevens, co-founder of Olympian Meeting, and today I'm excited to sit down with Carina Bauer, CEO of IMEX Group, to explore how wellness and sustainability are revolutionizing the event industry. In this episode, you'll learn how Carina and IMEX are leading the charge by designing flexible event schedules that prioritize attendee well-being, the importance of collaboration across industries to tackle global staffing sustainability challenges, and also how IMEX's educational tracks are inspiring innovation in event planning. Whether you're a seasoned professional or new to the field, you're going to love this conversation. Let's dive in and discover how to create healthier, more impactful experiences for everyone. Enjoy.
Aloha. Welcome to Return on Wellness, a web series brought to you by Olympian Meeting.
Welcome to this episode 20. Apparently that's a failure point in podcasts. I didn't know that.
Is it?
It's like,
Okay.
yeah, people break a little bit, but episode 20 of Return on Wellness. We are here today with Carina Bauer at the Skift Global Forum. We both happen to be here, so we're like, hey, let's see if we can scoot this episode out before IMEX, which is happening next month. You probably know exactly how many seconds until?
Maybe days.
Days, okay, all right. It's not got down to seconds
No.
yet. So we're going to talk about a few different things today, but thank you for joining us. And Karina, for those of you who may not have met you yet, please introduce yourself formally and we'll talk a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so my name is Carina Bauer. I am the CEO of the IMEX Group. And so, if you know IMEX, we run IMEX Frankfurt, IMEX America, and I'm responsible for the team that runs and organizes both those shows.
Amazing. Okay, how long have you been with IMEX?
So IMEX is a family business. My father founded it in 2001. I joined in 2002, so about 9 months before the first edition of IMEX Frankfurt. So that is roughly 22 years.
Okay, so now what did you do before IMEX? Especially if it was a
IMEX,
family business.
yeah.
Were you in the business before?
I wasn't in the trade show business. My father was in the trade show business from the 80s.
Okay.
So I kind of grew up with it, and he launched IBTM. Well, it was EIBTM at the time.
Okay.
It took place in Geneva. He founded that in roughly 1986, 87. So that was a big part of my childhood, actually, going to EIBTM in Geneva, going to conferences in the States for our summer holidays. So I was kind of introduced to the industry then. When I left university in 1998, after a short break, I actually joined my father in launching a coffee shop chain.
Oh.
So he sold EIBTM to Reed, who still own it.
Got it,
They
okay.
moved it to Barcelona. And in the meantime, he decided to open a small chain of coffee shops. Starbucks wasn't in the UK at the time, so it was kind of like one of the first branded coffee shop chains in the south of the UK. So
Okay.
I did that for about 3 years.
Do we know it? Have we heard of it?
No, it was bought in 2001 by a bigger chain,
Got
and
it.
they rebranded it, and that chain no longer exists either.
Oh, okay.
So no,
I wasn't sure if you were like sitting on like Costa money.
No,
And just like we're this
we weren't quite as successful
this
as that.
tycoon that is just like, yeah, I run IMEX for
Yeah.
fun because I have more money than I know what to do with.
No, sadly not. That would be nice. Yeah, no, so that was my introduction to work. Retail catering, hospitality, really tough. That is a really tough industry.
Customer's always right.
Customer's always right.
Except they're-
Exactly. And yeah, introduced to staffing, margins, operations. I mean, a coffee shop is like a little microcosm of every business, really.
Right.
So great training. Left that in 2001. We sold it, had a short break, and which you'll like. I went and did a ski season, so hence my love of skiing, and came back. And he had launched IMEX Frankfurt. There was a small launch team. I was wondering what to do. I decided to join the launch team just for the launch show.
Okay.
And then I was definitely leaving. I was going to go do an MBA, have a different life, but I loved it, so I stayed.
You know what is interesting is I got my first taste of events at a trade show as well. I was working for this company called Earthlink
All right.
in, as the kids say, the late 1900s.
Yeah.
And I was a sales rep for them, and I worked Macworld,
Right.
which was a big deal in the Bay Area at the time. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but I got to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And yet now here we are. So, okay. So out of curiosity, what did you do your first IMEX? Were you just like kind of helping out wherever you were? I mean, you must have been fairly green, but yet you knew the business kind of.
Yeah, that's right. It was familiar to me in terms of the industry, but I didn't know anything. I came in, I've always been quite an instinctive marketer.
Okay.
So I came in to do the marketing and special projects, we called it. So essentially...
Is that dumpster fires? Is that code for dumpster fires?
It's code for anything that isn't exhibitors or hosted buyers or basic operations. Yeah, it's a catch-all. But actually, what you see now as a part of IMEX, which is all the what I call extracurricular activities, the wellness program, the education program, all the initiatives, the Future Leaders Forum, the policy forum we have in Frankfurt, all of those additional experiences, the wellness room that we have, all of those started at our first show. They were different, but we even then had this plan to do things differently. And so really I ran all of that, as well as all of our marketing and all of our additional events like our association, leadership forum, or our corporate program. So all of those things. So it was insane. It was an absolutely insane kind of 9 months, but I didn't know what I was doing. So that was great because I didn't know what was coming. Every day was different. I did what I needed to do. And I learned the business from the ground up. And so it was great, and I also ran all the PR around the press center, the daily newspaper. We did monthly newsletters, everything. And yeah, so, doing that, you kind of learn everything about the business. You do the nitty gritty work, whether it's looking at data or, editing articles. So you kind of get a sense of everything.
Yeah, you got a first-hand view of all the things.
Exactly.
So that you could understand how it functioned on a macro level.
Exactly.
And with previous trade show experience.
Yes, familiarity with the industry.
It all came to life. It became real.
Absolutely. I've always been a person who thrives on a certain degree of pressure. When we're recruiting...
You're in the right business.
Yeah, exactly. So, when we're recruiting, I always say if you're an exam person, i.e., you kind of get a kick out of that hard work before an exam and everything's got to be done for that moment.
Right.
That's kind of, you're an event person because, if it's not done, it's not done, but you get it done.
Right.
And if you enjoy that, I think you enjoy events.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Okay, so that's great context. I think that's been very obvious for people who have attended. Let's talk a little bit about IMEX last year because it was a record-breaking year last year, right?
It was, yeah.
And it was record. How many, did you set records on everything? Was it record exhibitors, attendance, etc.?
It was records on everything, yeah. Last year was just phenomenal. I mean, it was a surprise to us as well. We opened registration and it went, and when I say open registration, obviously attendee, but we're always looking at the hosted buyer registration, and it came in so fast. We'd never really experienced that before. We'd never experienced that pace. So yeah, we were breaking all records there. We sold more space than we'd ever sold, which means, we have more exhibitors. But the key for us always is the matching.
Right.
That we can have the right number of buyers to exhibitors. That's really, really key. And so it broke all records and general attendance, from the industry. Everything was bigger last year.
Do you remember any of those numbers off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, total people that came was 15,000. So that was our biggest show across the board.
Wow, okay.
In terms of the hosted buyers, it was 4,200. To put it in context, we were targeting 3,700. So we went massively over. That was what we needed, we felt, for the exhibitors that were coming. So we were delighted. And the thing with us is, we are a family business. We're always investing for the long term. So we'd never close it unless we didn't have a hotel room. We always want more buyers. So we had 4,200 hosted buyers and exhibitors. I think it was about 3,400 exhibiting companies. So those were the broad stats.
Okay, so 3,400. Is the goal basically to have a hosted buyer for every booth? Because those numbers are fairly close, which is interesting.
Yes, actually, it's kind of, roughly speaking, if we can have a hosted buyer for every company exhibiting, then that's kind of our minimum, like that kind of one-to-one. Obviously, the ratio at the moment is higher than that, but the show works at about a one-to-one ratio. We obviously have buyer attendees as well that come.
Right.
So we had, I think it was around 1,500, maybe between 13 and 1,500
I was one of those
buyer
last
attendees.
year. I was not hosted last year.
And actually, our buyer attendees, especially at IMEX America, are really high quality, high value. We get a very good proportion of corporates who come in as a buyer attendee because they don't want to be hosted, or they can't accept the hosted program. So we really value them too, and they also obviously boost those buyer numbers. So
right.
And they are also, they don't tend to make as many pre-scheduled appointments because they're not committed in the same way, but they tend to be your walk-ups.
Right, yeah, and I know I made all my appointments last year kind of on the fly, but I really made sure that I saw the people I needed to see, and it wasn't a lot of, let's say, filling the calendar or the diary
absolutely. And
to use the proper term.
No, and we don't. No, it is. We have managed to Americanize ourselves. Well, we have become a little bit more flexible, is what I would say. We still want hosted buyers to make as many appointments as possible. However, when we see there are 15 appointment slots in a schedule per day, and when we see buyers who filled them all up with meetings, that worries us as well because it's not very realistic. We'd rather people make a few less, do some education or have a lunch with somebody, enjoy their experience, do some wellness, have an all-rounded experience, be able to go again the next day and not be a no-show. So that's like really critical. I'd rather people had a realistic diary and not no-show.
It's like a workout, and you like approach it too fast, go out too hard, and then you blow up and you like have to sit down because you tried to do too many appointments.
Yeah, so we
actually
look through schedules, we kind of eyeball them before the show.
They're watching you.
We are. But those people who've made, like every single slot is full, we usually contact them and say, are you sure you can do this? Because as you say, what we don't want is hosted buyers filling meeting schedules with exhibitors for the sake of it. And turning up and say, I don't really have business, I just thought I had to fill this slot, that's a complete waste of time for everybody. So that's totally pointless. And we also don't want people to no-show. So those are the two things. So that was why we said, you know what, let's give agency to people, let's treat our buyers as VIPs, as adults. We always say our buyers are our VIPs, so why are we gonna beat them with a stick, And 99.9% of people are not there because they just want a fun time. They are there to do their business, and then on the top of that, they want it to be fun.
Right.
And so we need to trust people. So that's what we did. So we talked to people in registration about the commitment of being a host buyer. We asked them to say, by accepting this is your commitment to make this number of meetings per day, but we put it in a range, 6 to 8. Our guidance is 6 to 8 meetings per day that you're hosted, and we like those to be majority one-to-one, but they can also be stand present. Sign up for some stand presentations, sign up for some of those group meetings as well, if that's more appropriate. We want people to make the most of their time, and we want people to commit to that. So when we then so now we're in the kind of chasing stage, saying, you've made this commitment, please now make your meetings, rather than, we see you've only got 6 meetings, now you need another 6. It's not realistic.
Well, I haven't made mine yet, so I apologize.
No, that's fine. That's good, because that means they'll come next week.
Maybe I'll do them on the plane on the way there.
But the other thing is that, especially at IMEX America.
I mean, on the way home today.
Yeah,
not on the way there.
No, on the way there. Well, the thing is, some of the most popular exhibitors, their schedules get actually completely booked up, probably about a week out from the show.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. I know people think that's just a message we put out, but it's true. As you say, you want to come see the people you need to see. So we try to encourage people to do it a bit earlier, just to make sure they get to see those people.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And You've mentioned wellness a couple times. I'm going to go through a deep dive next week in another segment with Liz and Nicole. They have that show. I know you sent them some content last month on how to pack.
Yes.
You guys sent the video with the big, giant teddy bear that somebody stuffed
yeah, absolutely. That was filmed in my house, actually.
Oh, amazing.
That's my kid's teddy bear.
Oh, amazing. I filmed a segment after that was called How to Drymex.
Oh,
because
right.
I don't know if you're familiar with, there's a little bit of there's been an underground movement called Drymex.
I don't know this.
For people that don't necessarily want to drink at IMEX.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea.
It's slowly catching on. I know this year Caesars is going to have a signature mocktail at their booth.
They also have a completely dry networking event as well. I was just invited to it.
Oh, is it the one on Wednesday night?
I think it is, yeah.
It's actually not completely dry.
Oh, is it not? Okay.
No, and
that's how it looked from the invitation.
Yeah,
I was impressed.
It was purple, right? It was like shades of purple. I'm moderating that.
Oh, okay.
So I'm glad you're going to be there.
Yeah.
Yes, and I was going to bring that up. They're doing, what I love about that event in particular is the way they called it a sober, inclusive happy hour.
Oh, yeah.
And because to me, when you do an event that's completely dry, that's as essentially exclusive as something that doesn't have any alternatives. And when I say not alternatives, I mean club soda and soda. That's not an alternative. It doesn't count.
Absolutely.
You got to do a little more.
We want something that tastes good, that looks good.
Well, it could be, the big thing is there's a lot of people who struggle, and they might be sober for a number of reasons. That's a whole different podcast. Yes. But they don't want to deal with the peer pressure, explaining why they don't drink, those kinds of things. So what's special about that event is the celebrity appearance that's going to be there, Carl Ludke. He saw his life on TV and saw what was happening because of his drinking, but he didn't want to go to a party and not be a part of the party and seen as an outcast because he wasn't drinking the same look as everyone else was drinking. Yeah. So they created a version of an alcoholic beverage that was non-alcoholic so that people could be included.
Absolutely.
Which, getting into belonging is a whole nother topic.
Yeah, absolutely. But I really agree with that. I drink, not a lot, I'm not a big drinker, but when I go to conferences and at IMEX in particular, I'm not completely dry, but I drink very little because if I'm tired, it's what I can cope in a certain way. But if I'm tired and not even hungover, but just feeling the effects of a few drinks, that's a whole different thing to deal with on the trade show floor, and obviously I have to be on and working. And so, I drink very, very little during that week and during conferences in general, because that way I can deal with any tiredness, which is really just lack of sleep and, excitement, adrenaline, seeing people, and I can deal with that much more easily.
Well, it's a scientific fact that alcohol impedes melatonin production.
Right.
So while it makes you tired, it doesn't actually help you sleep.
No, well,
it trashes your sleep.
It trashes you. We've all had that where, you fall asleep and then you wake up at 3 a.m. and, your body's processed whatever alcohol, and then you have to try to actually get sleep, and then that's a disaster. So in a trade show like IMEX, I think I don't know how people do it, actually.
Yeah, because there's plenty of people that it is their time to party.
Absolutely, which is fine as well.
Fine. Agreed.
Actually, full respect when people have partied, not gone to bed, and then come and turn up for the IMEX run and win the IMEX run, and I'm like, good for you with your stamina, but that is not me.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit some of the things that people can look forward to at IMEX this year in the wellness sector. You mentioned the IMEX run, that's happening again.
Yep, that's happening again on the Wednesday mornings, so that's always massively popular. We have this year as well on the Monday afternoon. We're working with Go Running Tours.
Okay.
And they're actually doing a walking tour of Las Vegas. So if you want to have just a little bit of a sort of city tour, walk with other people, they're doing that as well.
Cool.
So that's really nice. That's a new thing. We've obviously got...
okay, so Monday afternoon, a walking tour.
Yep, and then Wednesday early morning is the...
Early morning is 6:40, I think it said on the schedule.
Yeah, something like that. I can never remember the exact time of when they release the guns. But you know, the IMEX run, even if you're not a big runner, is a really good event. It's a great atmosphere. And we do have people walking it as well, actually, so you don't have to run. But that's a really nice event. We're working with Google, again, to bring the resilience room.
Resilience room?
Yes.
I like that. That's a new, I think, is that the old, not the old, but is that a rebrand of the wellness room?
Sort of, yeah. It's in a similar place to last year, but different to where the old wellness room was. It's very loud. This area, it is a wellness room. It's lit. They've thought about the lighting, the seating, the scents. And yeah, it is a space, no devices, go in and just, relax, basically.
Recharge.
Recharge. The reason it's called the Resilience Room is it's part of the new project, which is around neurodiversity. So initially the idea was around giving people who needed, because of neurodiversity, a different space to really be able to deal with a trade show, because it's so overwhelming in terms of the sensory overload. And then next to it, we have a quiet lounge as well as that. So they're very similar spaces, but one of them is more immersive, I suppose, than the other.
I feel like one's like, to use athletic terms, I feel like one's an active recovery and one's kind of like just a recovery room.
Yes, I think that's a really good way of putting it. One's more active, one's more passive.
Okay.
And then throughout the show...
Now, is there going to be someone in there keeping people from doing conference calls and stuff like that in there?
Yes, there is.
Because that's what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
People are like, a quiet space.
Quiet space.
I could take my call in here.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the lounge area, which is a bit more open, but definitely in the resilience room, we have people that manage that space.
Yeah.
Because we also do meditations in there. So if people want to just try, or even if you're used to meditating, you just want 10 minutes, we have meditations, we have yoga sessions. So all through the show, you can actually search on the app or online for the wellness track, and we have all sorts of different things going on to just give people that opportunity to recharge. And then the other thing, which is, I think it's around wellness, but it's a little bit different, is we have a couple of coaches on site as well. And one of them is actually Carmen Boscolo. She was with us last year.
She is a Ayurvedic practitioner.
She is.
We are going to be doing an episode with her.
Oh, are you?
Yes.
Okay, so she's going to be there again.
Awesome.
And then we have a more business-focused coach as well. She does do business coaching, but with that Ayurvedic practice. Yeah, so
she's coached her husband's business very well.
Oh, she has. She's done it, I know, because she's the power behind that. But yeah, so...
I'm excited for him to see this.
Yeah. Hi, Julius. Yeah, so I think that's also, for me, that goes in part with that idea of that all-round well-being, where you're looking after yourself in multiple different ways and thinking about your wellness in quite a holistic way.
Yeah, I love that, because it really is, it's not just the physical, it's not just the mental. I know Event Minds Matter is going to be doing a thing there as well. It's about overall. And we talk about our 4 M's, but if you zoom out even further and dig into for people who are familiar with it, the wellness wheel, you get into financial well-being and a lot of other things, because if your business isn't doing well, you're probably stressed out, and that stress is permeating other things, even down to your DNA. That stress can be passed down from generation to generation. So I love that you're looking at people as a holistic thing.
Yeah.
We actually have a little something that we're going to release at IMEX. It's going to be a conference-focused 5-minute and 10-minute meditation available for free.
Great.
On Spotify.
Oh, I love that.
So anyone can listen to it at any conference they go to, and it is a conference-focused meditation that actually talks about slowing down, embracing the new connections you've made, thinking about the energy you've gotten from seeing people you haven't seen in a while, but really digging into the core, and we're really excited about it.
That's great.
Nobody knows, and the only person who will know is the editor of this podcast, you, and then we're not going to release it until
Fantastic.
IMEX.
I really like that idea. And the other thing is, I forgot to say, is we've got a whole educational track around this as well. So if you just want to come, be educated, whether it's for you or how you incorporate these types of things into your own events as well. We have a whole track around that as well.
Yes, and there are a ton of great speakers.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure you're surprised. I know most of the speakers.
Yeah, you probably know more than me.
There's a number of people. So yeah, and that's a whole wellness wheel. I know we talked about what we were going to talk about before this. I would like to pause and talk about Tahira.
Yeah.
Because she's amazing.
She is.
Has she been a game changer for the organization?
I think she has. I mean, she obviously
I feel like you guys
us.
Hired Tom Brady, so to speak.
I had been working with Tahira. I was on the site foundation board and she was head of events.
Right.
So I saw what she did for site in terms of leveling up the education and experiences at their events. So I was really excited, when she left site and then, we offered her the position. I knew that there was massive potential. What Tahira has that's really unique is that she has this ability to connect dots across multiple disciplines and ideas. And so what you see at the show is these sessions where she's brought this, influential travel blogger from, the sort of consumer industry with somebody from our industry on a different topic, and she brings people together to have really interesting conversations. And so I think she has been a game changer. I look at the education program and it's so good. I'm really, you don't often say that about your own events, we try to be humble, but ultimately she's done a tremendous job, and I would just really recommend people spend a little bit of time going through because there's so much rich content there.
So make the time for education is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you said, don't stack your schedule, and so it's full of appointments, and make the time for the education because it's something that you guys are investing in and
yeah, exactly.
prioritizing.
We invest very heavily in it. And as I say, coming back to the start, we are a family business. We're kind of we're investing for the long term. And in the same way, we want people to have a really great experience at the show and want to come back. I think you don't do that if you just stack your schedule with meetings that you think you have to do. We want people to come and do their business, have some fun, learn something, have a bit of time for recharge because that's going to make them more productive for their next meeting, etc., and go away. And yes, they'll feel tired, but also feel really good about what they've done that week. And maybe they've been inspired to do something new, maybe even start running or something like that. We've heard of those stories as well. So that's really important. So yeah, take time, look through that education program, and even if you do one session, I really recommend it.
Awesome. Okay, good. There's also a push-up challenge, which I told you
Yes.
about. It's unsanctioned, even though I'm telling you
Yes.
about it.
It's a fringe event.
It's a fringe event. Yes, a fringe event. You were talking about that yesterday, actually, here at the Skift event, about these pop-up events. I think to dig back into business and a little bit off wellness, and we'll get back to it, you seem to really embrace those ancillary pop-up events. And I think there's a lot of conference managers and trade show managers who feel that like that's competition or always want to squash those things. I know when I was in corporate, we were going to a big trade show, and if we were doing our own pop-up event, we had to keep it very quiet because the show organizer would get upset that we were doing a pop-up event. That did not seem to be your take yesterday.
Yeah, so for us, we have core show hours where we need, for the success of the trade show, the hosted buyers and the exhibitors to be on the trade show floor together. That for us is sacrosanct, and we do get a bit upset if there are pop-up events that are going to take people off the show floor within those core business hours. Beyond that, we are really happy for people to create their pop-up events because we cannot possibly do that all ourselves. We just wouldn't have the bandwidth to do that, and actually we wouldn't even know what to do because say you get we work with every trade association in the industry, we work with every micro group really in the industry. They know what their people want from that
Right.
event. They know where it should be, what speaker there should be, whether it should be a dry event or not a dry event, whether there should be a push-up challenge or a DJ. You know what you need for your people. And I think increasingly we see a tension between sort of large events, which are obviously fantastic because everybody's there, and the experience of a smaller event. So for me to be able to plug those together is really valuable. So as long as it's not taking buyers off the trade show floor and exhibitors, in those core hours, we're relaxed about it.
I love that. I think more organizations need to embrace that,
Yep.
especially because that's what builds the little like micro communities, right?
Exactly.
And keeps people engaged and wanting to come back for
it
more.
means that you can come to IMEX, you can see your whole global industry, but you can also see and experience your micro community, and that's, that dinner with those 10 people might be the best part of your week. And so that's super valuable and we don't want to lose that.
Love that. Okay, so you talked about IMEX Americas, IMEX Frankfurt, the various councils you have stood up. You have a very full plate, but we were talking yesterday a little bit about your hobbies, and we were also talking about the post I put up the other day about the deadlift ETF. And for people who aren't familiar with it, it's an electronic trading fund or something. I'm probably wrong on that definition. It was a new term to me, so I haven't memorized it. But this guy took these companies, and it started on Reddit, so you know it's trustworthy. He took these companies where the CEOs were known to lift heavy weights or do like fight sports.
Right.
So heavy, high contact, aggressive things. The likes of Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and whatnot. And they outperformed the S&P 500 by like 140%. But when we were talking about it on LinkedIn, there was a lack of female CEOs, just in general, right?
Yeah.
So I'm excited to be with a female CEO. But secondly, I think there's some misnomer about fitness and work performance. And especially in our industry, the number one excuse for us not taking care of ourselves is I don't have time. So,
Or I'm traveling.
right. When we were talking yesterday, you were talking about when you were surfing in Costa Rica, and I don't snowboard, I ski, and you're rock climbing and bouldering and all these. I think you fit that. If IMEX could join that group, it would probably, if it was a publicly traded company, I'm sure it would do very well. How do you find the time, and what kind of things do you do to, I just kind of like your personal viewpoint on wellness in general, so that those people struggling to find the time can understand why it's so important.
Yeah. So first of all,
Sorry, I kind of rambled on there.
No, that's great. First of all, I would say, you have cycles in your life where you have more or less energy and time for different things. Certainly when my kids were very young, it was much harder, of course. My kids are teenagers now, so they don't really want to spend lots of time with me. So I definitely have more time when I'm at home. But I would say even when my kids were younger, I didn't spend as much time as I do now, but I've had a consistency of at least working out, having a PT, going to the gym, even if it was a couple of times a week and I couldn't do more than that, I had that consistency. So I would say during the last sort of 10, 15 years, my fitness has gone up and down, but it has never been rock bottom. And I think that's really important. So some level of consistency. I've had times where I've just wanted to do more stretching and yoga and less intense sports. But what I found is there's a real sweet spot of working out 3 times a week. You get fitter that way. 2 times you're maintaining, 3 times you're getting fitter. And if you're getting fitter, you have more energy and you want to do more. And so that's really, that's been sort of my grounding, if you like. Right now in my life, really important to me. I feel that I'm fitter than I've been in a long time and strong, and actually maybe not as cardio fit, because I was doing a lot of biking a few years ago, and like long distance biking is the most amazing fitness, but I'm stronger now because I'm doing a lot of bouldering and I feel great. And so I think you have to just find something that you really enjoy doing, that you can then commit to and be consistent with.
Yeah, I think if you enjoy it, I've been asked, oh, what's the most effective workout? And I say, the one you'll do again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you enjoy doing it, you'll keep doing it and you'll find the time to do it.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. I think the discussion around enough time is not about time, it's about priorities. That's what it is. And that's the same in your work life.
Will you say that again?
The comments around I don't have enough time, whether it's about fitness or work, whatever it is, it's not about time, it's about priorities. What are you going to prioritize? And it might be that you can only prioritize 30 minutes of workout instead of 60 minutes. That's okay, you've still done that. You can prioritize what you want to prioritize. And I remember when I first had a baby, so 2008, when my firstborn was born, and I probably worked 60 plus hour weeks at that point in my life. And it took me a while to work out how I was going to get my work done to the quality and level I wanted, how I was going to have time for this child, and it took me time, but it was about priorities. It's always about priorities. So, and that's the same with healthy eating. You know, do you have time to think about it? Do you want to? There is always time, but sometimes we can be perfectionists about it, so you've got to be a bit pragmatic about it too.
I saw an illustration, I think it was this morning, this neuroscientist I follow, because I'm sure you're surprised by that. It was an image of a bunch of glasses that were full of water, and they were all full to the same level, and it said what people think consistency is, and then it was one below with water at various levels in every glass, and it says what consistency actually is.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, with my travel schedule, I won't work out this week the same as I will next week when I'm back at home, because I can't. But I will still do some things.
Yeah, but you brought
week.
your climbing shoes.
But
with
I did
you.
bring my climbing shoes, so I will be climbing this week. And the thing is, that the other thing I found is, as you say, you know, as we said, it's about priorities. So right now, I've prioritized going climbing 3 times a week, if I can. And that means I get into the office a little bit late on a couple of days, but I will make that time up in the evenings or in a weekend because I want to, because it really, and I get into the office and I feel fantastic and I'm in a good mood and I'm productive and I'm fast, and often I solve problems on the climbing wall in the same way as people might on their run or whatever, because your mind is always thinking about that work issue, but in a different way. I think it's like the liminal thinking, right?
Yeah.
So it's productive in a different way. We have to stop feeling guilty because we're not at our desk. And that's difficult for me as well, but I constantly remind myself of those choices and those priorities that I've made and why I've done that. You know, and occasionally I say, you know, actually I'm really busy, I can't get into the office late on that day, I've got to have an early meeting, I'll make the time up another time. And that's where you say there's consistency, but sometimes it goes in waves.
Yeah, consistent is always doing something, it's not always doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And something is always better than nothing. I was talking to a friend this morning and she was like, I set my alarm wrong, I woke up late, I only have 45 minutes at the gym. And I was like, yeah, okay, well do 45 minutes of burpees and you'll be fine. And she was like, yeah, no, but I hear you and thank you. I think one of the things you said yesterday that really stuck with me was you talked about how while you were climbing, you had something happen and it freaked you out and you learned from it, and then you were able, that impacted your leadership and business and whatnot. Will you tell that story?
Yeah, you know, I've been climbing for 20 years, but not very well. My husband's a climber, and
your husband owns a
gym, a climbing gym.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
So for the past 20 years, I've been taking up some pretty big, you know, multi-pitch free climbing routes. And, you know, there have been times where I've been really scared and I've had, not panic attacks, but, you know, I've been hanging off a vertical rock face and, you know, been shaking with fear. And
that is full on sympathetic nervous system engagement. It is fight or flight.
But what it also is your mind making up stories. Your mind projecting forward to, what if that piece of gear comes out and that piece of gear comes out? What would happen if I fall from here? I'm clearly going to die. It's your mind making up these stories and these non-realities. So over time, and it took me some time, I've learned to control that fear on the wall. Doesn't mean I don't get scared. It means that I know how to talk to myself, how to calm myself down, how to take a deep breath, pause before I go again. Sometimes when you're climbing, say on a multi-pitch route, you might have a belay point or a stopping point midway,
Right.
which can feel quite safe. You might be in a little alcove on the wall.
Yeah.
But then to start again, you've got to come out of that onto the face, which could be very exposed, and go again. Those moments, you remember those moments because it's so hard stepping back out into that fear.
You come out of the fear, you gather yourself, and then you have to go
back.
face it again.
You have to face
Literally
it again.
face it.
Literally face it again. So those moments have been very memorable for me, and I've remembered them. I've also had moments, I think I told you about, where I was abseiling down a face and the rope got caught.
Can you explain what that is for people?
Yeah, I think the American term is rappelling.
Okay, that's where you're hanging from the rope?
Yeah, so there's a top rope and then you lower yourself down
okay.
a cliff, basically.
All right, fair enough.
So I was rappelling and the rope below me got caught, and I panicked and I tried to, pull it up, and it wasn't getting pulled up. And then I had to just stop myself, take a few moments, took a deep breath, and then I said, okay, counted myself in, pull. And I pulled and it came free immediately. And it's those kind of moments that you see, like, very physically, that when you panic, it's not helpful. It's not helpful for any of your responses. It's not helpful physically. It doesn't lead to good outcomes. So all of those things, it's just to say that when you put yourself out of your comfort zone in whatever way that might be for you, you learn those lessons and you can take that into day-to-day life. And I'm sure that was helpful for me when we hit the pandemic, where you have to deal with problems, just learning to put things into perspective and deal with them. I'm certain climbing has helped me with that.
I love that metaphor. I think you can even say the same for when you get that email that really pisses you off. When you're like, I'm gonna, and you go, because this is something I learned during the pandemic, is like, oh, I should not reply to this right now. I should
or
probably
social
just wait.
media, people, reacting on social media.
Yeah.
Just pause, and I say that to my team a lot. You don't have to respond immediately. Let's just wait. Let's just see what happens. And I think, learning those lessons, part of that is age, you get experience and whatever, but I do think that generally putting yourself out of your comfort zone is just really, really important.
Yeah, I completely agree. No surprise there. So you rock climb, you said you ski.
Yeah, I love skiing.
Okay. You surf?
No, I wouldn't say I surf. I have surfed, which is very different to I surf. I'll just be very clear about that, because if anyone ever goes surfing with me, that would not be an authentic
So you need
statement.
like a 12-foot longboard.
I need a 12 and ideally a person with me to push me.
Okay.
I can just about get up on a board in a beginner way.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, so, and day to day.
But sport is just part of your life.
Absolutely, I go to the gym regularly. So, a normal week for me would probably be going to the gym about 3 or 4 times a week, and then climbing around 3 times a week as well, and bouldering.
Okay, and you are running the largest trade show in our industry, or trade shows,
yes,
arguably, and yet you still go, let's just call it workout and or stay active 6 days a week.
Yes, yeah.
So it goes back to what you said before. It's not about finding the time or not having the time. It's about the priority and making it a priority.
Yeah, making that a priority, absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely doable. And because I do that when I'm home, when I'm traveling, if I have a week, I might travel to a conference, be really tired, jet lagged, and I may do nothing but a bit of stretching in my room. But that's fine, because I have that base of fitness. I'm not going to lose my fitness because I haven't worked out for a week. During IMEX week, because I'm working and I'm on, I don't even think about exercising. I don't have the time. I'm walking million thousand steps.
She always has to introduce the keynote after the IMEX run.
So, but I put it away, and and I think you have to forgive yourself. Like, again, coming back to what's consistency. you know, we don't have to be such a perfectionist about this. There are times when it's not possible. That cannot be my priority during an IMEX week. So it's not my priority, and that's fine. And I get back, I rest for 24 hours, and then I'll start again.
Yeah, I totally get it. Real important question. Can you out leg press Tahira?
Do you know? I don't know. We've never tried. I don't know if I would out leg press her because she is pretty strong.
So she was nice enough to sit down with me, and if you go look in the archives, it's there. She sat down with me the Friday morning after IMEX last year.
She did, didn't she? I don't know how she did that. She's an insane person.
She was coherent and thoughtful, and I was blown away. But she's very proud of her leg press, and she should be. She's like doing like 5 plates on each side.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can do that.
Yeah, I don't know that I can do that.
I talk about being relatively strong. That's the reason I like bouldering, because you only have to be strong for your own weight and size. You don't have to be absolutely the strongest person. And so that works very well for me.
Now, I'm going to ask you about something else. So you tore your calf.
Yes, in April.
Given the level of activity you maintain and enduring an injury like that, I'm guessing you got some lessons out of that.
Yeah, that was interesting because I was feeling really good. I just come back from 4 days bouldering in Spain. It had been a great trip. And it was a good lesson because I actually hadn't warmed up properly. And I overdid it, you know, it was too much activity. And, you know, I'm 47 years old, so I have to, like, know that as well. Actually, and then I was pretty sad because I thought, oh, you know, I'm going to lose my fitness, what can I do?
Right, I'm just going to turn into a giant couch potato.
Exactly. So my gym is great. I've got a really fantastic, I do sort of small group sessions. They actually said, no, come in immediately. 2 days after, I mean, I was hobbling around, and they gave me like a program, like some just really gentle biking just to get the blood flowing, some upper body work. So I never stopped training at all. I never stopped doing anything. And then I thought, because I am a glass half full person, then I thought, well, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to just get stronger on my upper body. So I started like doing more upper body training, basically. Overdid that slightly as well. Got a sort of micro injury. But essentially, I look back at that time, I just had to accept that something like my climbing was going to plateau, maybe dip a bit, and then I'd have to come back, which is what's happened. That's fine. But I'd never stopped training, and I think that's also an important thing, to like have somebody who you trust in the fitness world who can give you that advice. Because if I'd been on my own, I mean, I couldn't walk, so I felt like I couldn't do anything. And for them to say, no, come in, we'll look after you, we can give you some exercises, that was really helpful. And yeah, now it's pretty much back to normal.
So to me, this is a perfect example of the deadlift ETF and fitness and resilience. Because you were handed an injury, and instead of saying, well, that's it, I guess I got to just sit around and do nothing until this, it was, okay, what can I do?
Yeah.
How can I maintain what I've worked so hard for? How do I keep things at least moving? Maybe not at the same, maybe one particular thing isn't going to advance, but I can work on something else that's going to advance. There's a lot to unpack there. So,
yeah.
Couple things. We're going to wrap up here. I'm going to ask you 2 hot takes, and I also want to thank you for something. You can ruminate about it and think while I ask you. The hot takes are, what do we need to stop, and what do we need more of in our industry? So as you're thinking about that, what I want to thank you for is how incredibly accessible you are during IMEX. As someone who just walks the floor and goes to my meetings and this, that, the other, I see you repeatedly during the show. And I was talking with Andrea and Barbara and Miguel last night at the reception, and I was like, she is so accessible instead of this ivory tower CEO that comes in, does her thing, and then just leaves. And I mean, even here at Skift, right? Like, you were on stage, but then you were still here, where some of the other speakers were kind of in and out. So thank you for being so wonderfully accessible, and I love that you always even if you're running, you at least say hi.
Yeah.
And I think that's really refreshing. We need more of that.
Thank you.
Okay, so hot take, you can go one or the other. You can pick whichever one you want to do first. What do we need more of? What do we have to stop?
The wellness.
Whatever you want. Let's say on an industry level, because, but I'm fine if you want to do wellness.
Yeah. Well, what I think, can I have a couple?
Sure. Yeah, please.
On a wellness stuff, I think what we need more of is healthy food at events. And that's tough, but it's really important, I think. I think what we really need more of from a sort of more industry perspective is better, true cross-industry collaboration on some of the big issues.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, yesterday we were talking about attracting young people into the industry, how we present ourselves as an industry, whether it's to young people, whether it's to policymakers. We can't do that in a competitive way. We can't compete with each other for the organization who's going to have the best message. Nobody outside the industry cares about that. We need to do that kind of thing together. Same with sustainability. There are some big macro issues where we're affected and buffeted by the world around us, and we need to truly come together as an industry to solve those for our industry, and not see that as a competitive advantage for our individual organizations. An organization cannot own sustainability. We can all contribute, and some can do that better than others. That's where our competitive advantage lies, not in trying to say we are the best, we know everything, because nobody does. So I just think that's really, really important. So that's the kind of what should we stop and what should we do more of, really. So that's, I think, what I would say as an industry.
I think one of the things we're struggling with is being recognized as an industry.
Absolutely, and it's because we're kind of what I call a horizontal industry. We're not a vertical sector, we're not automotive, pharmaceutical. We serve all of those, we make all of those sectors work.
Right.
And so it's hard for people to put their hand around it. And of course, so many people have organized a meeting and events. It's like, I can do that. How is that an industry? So we don't explain ourselves very well, and it's because it's hard. If it was easy, we'd do it. But I really think that we need to stop bickering about that and come together and truly come together. And that means we need to fund ourselves to do that, because that doesn't happen, coming together and articulating that globally without some kind of funding as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for spending the time with me this morning. Thank you for watching. We will see you at IMEX in about, I think it's like a week after this is gonna air next week.
Yeah,
so
couple
when
of
you're
weeks.
seeing this, it's
2.5. Oh yes, a week after it airs, that's right.
Yeah, so we'll see you in a week at IMEX. Feel free to wave at Karina and tell her you saw her on the podcast, and she will be walking around.
I will be, and I'm happy to wave.
Okay, all right. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining Return on Wellness. For help integrating these ideas, please scan the QR code. We sincerely hope you join us for our next episode of Return on Wellness.